Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today I'm going to work on a reel that I previewed in our upcoming projects video the other day. This one was found at a local town-wide garage sale. I paid $10 for it. It's a rod and reel combination. I don't believe the rod was used much because, well, we still have the plastic wrap on the bottom of it, and well, it just doesn't look like it's had a lot of wear. But one of the things that I always encourage you to do if you purchase one that used and you don't know the history of the reel is to give it a service, check it all out so that it doesn't fail you, well, when you take it out on the water. This is a rod and reel combination. I understand it's sold for about $60 or $70. I'm not familiar with the company Fishin or the brand, but what I intend to do with this one is to tune it up. And then, well, there's a group that our fishing club is affiliated with. They're out of Manhattan, yep, New York City. And, well, they teach kids to fish in the East River, of all places. And it's a wonderful fishing place if you haven't been around there. Don't think New York City doesn't have any great fishing. It does, right within reach of the, well, the walkways to the East River. Well, they have a group of kids, and they're always interested in the getting the kids the fishing equipment so that once they teach them how to fish, they can well, they can make it a lifelong avocation. So when I find a reel and rod like this, and I know that we've got one of those events planned, I always have no problem whatsoever buying it, fixing it up, and getting it to the hands of somebody who might appreciate it for a long time to come. Well, what do we know about this reel? We don't know anything about it other than it's made in China. That means it's probably a trade reel. Some major manufacturer probably made it. And the other thing we know is the person that had it told me they just bought it. They didn't use it much, put it in the rafters, and we can see the evidence of a lot of dirt and debris in that on this reel. And, well, they just wanted $10 for it. So I thought it's going to a good cause. And, oh, by the way, we can make a fishing video on how to service this reel, so how can I lose, right? All right, we're starting by taking off the exterior pieces and parts. One of the things says it's a smooth bearing system. I have no idea what that means, other than it's probably got a single ball bearing in it. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of the Shakespeare reels, for example, only have single ball bearings in it. We do know it's very dirty, and we do know that we can clean this thing up, and some kid will be happy to have this one as their first rod and reel that they own. So let's get started. Before I get too far down, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to the channel, you'll find that I work on all kinds of fishing reels. This one is a, well, it's a mid-size reel. It's probably a 50-size fishing reel. It's called the 550, so I guess I'll put it in that range. It's ideal for surf, for pier, from boat, and of course from the walkway for the East River in Manhattan. So yeah, it's a nice reel. It's probably a standard industry design. We don't expect to see state-of-the-art anything in this reel, but we do expect to see a smile on a child's face. And well, if you subscribe, I don't know if you'll see that smiling child's face, but you'll see how to work on these and other reels to either help you fix the one that you own, or to learn more about the art of reel repair, how to fix and service and keep them running. And well, that's all good in the end, right? So even if we just called this one a tuition reel and just learned how it's made, there's something in it for everybody. All right, so what did we do? We removed the handle that was attached to the main gear through a side plate screw. That long shaft goes through the main gear, and that's how you get to turn the main gear and anchor the handle. A couple of things when you're working on a reel that you don't know about. One of them is keep track of the parts, because you probably won't find replacement parts for them. I use a parts tray to do that. And the other is to take a lot of pictures, because, well, unless you've worked on the reel before, chances are you're not going to find a schematic for this reel. And if you get lost along the way, if you've forgotten the orientation of a piece or a part, you're going to be in trouble, right? So the pictures will provide you a reference point in terms of how the pieces and parts were before you started taking them apart, and it will also show you a little bit about the orientation of them when it's time to go put them back together again. Normally I service the spool last, but because we got all this dirt and debris up here and it all needs to be cleaned off anyway, I think we'll just go right to the spool service first. I use a penetrating oil just to kind of loosen up the dirt. You can see this one's going to shine up real nice. It really is just casual dust, I guess, and dirt and whatever the heck else was in the rafters there. I don't know if it was stored outdoors in a garage or if it was in the basement rafters, but it was stored somewhere where it was obviously pretty dusty. So that's, I think, why we got the dust there. We're going to remove this clip here that's holding your washers on. And my guess is we probably have felt washers in here. Yep, we have felt washers in here. So it's a good thing that we started here. Felt washers are fine. They provide a lot of protection. It's not just used on low-end reels. Shimano uses them, Daiwa uses them, and well, Penn used to use them as well. I think Penn has moved over some of theirs to the HT100s, but a lot of them are felt. Here's what happens. Felt dries and it sticks to your metal washer, and then that becomes ineffective. So the best way to deal with a felt washer is to put oil on them. You can oil or grease. I like to just saturate it with oil. That oil is going to keep that washer pliable, and well, it won't tear, and it'll operate very efficiently. It's not there to provide slip for drags. A lot of people think lubricating the drag washers is all about the slip function. It's not. It's about keeping them from drying out and cracking. Well, you saw that there was a washer that I put in the middle that had two studs on the end that fit in the grooves of the spool. Those are called eared washers. The ones that are round with the rectangular center, they're called keyed washers. And keyed washers go high and low in a typical 6-washer set. And the eared washer goes in the middle. Now that doesn't hold true on all. Some manufacturers have taken reels and drag washers to the next extent and made some of them variable. Penn is one of those that has done that with certain reels. There's a variability in how you can stack them for more or less drag. And all I'm doing right now is just making sure that that clip is anchored in the groove of the spool. All right, I'm just going to wipe that down. And again, there's no real evidence that this has been used of any abuse. Let's put it that way. It's no evidence it's been abused. Actually, looks like a very nice rod and reel combo. When I was spinning it, it was running fine. So I did do a pre-test. You should always do a pre-test when you're working on fishing reels before you consider buying them, because if you find something that's not quite right, well, negotiate the price down. Or walk away from it if you think that there's a broken piece of part there that just simply can't be corrected. We removed the click ratchet. That's going to make noise when your spool is letting out. It's a beta alarm kind of a system. And there was one transparent washer right there that goes on top, and that adjusts the spool height for the line lay. All right, we're going to remove the lockdown screw for your rotor nut. And again, all of these pieces and parts go into my parts tray. The parts tray is a place that I know where to look when it comes time for the reinstallation of these pieces and parts. Looking for a 12mm wrench now. This was reverse threaded, so it's going to come off in a clockwise manner. And if you find when you're working on a reel and you go to kind of take it off in your traditional lefty-loosey kind of a thing, and it's not going and it actually feels like it's getting tighter, just try the other way. A lot of manufacturers do use a reverse thread on those rotor nuts. All right, let's see if we can pull the rotor up and off now. We can. And there's a lot of, again, dirt and debris here. You can do this two ways. I'm going to use the penetrating oil. You can take this to the sink and just blow it out with some tap water. That the stream of your basic tap water should be enough to clear up this. This is just surface dirt. Again, just because I was leaning from what I'm told in the rafters. All right, clean that up, get it in here. I'll make this thing look as nice as you can. Imagine receiving a gift and kind of looks like it's beat up. Well, if you have the opportunity, you can clean it up, and somebody gives you it. What's like, wow, look at this. It looks brand new, right? Well, I don't know how much brand new, but I do know that it makes a difference to me. And if it makes a difference to me, we're going to clean it up. There you go. All right, we've done just that. We've cleaned up the front end. These two pieces are big enough. They don't need to be in the parts tray. Do notice that you do have two shim washers that were sitting between the top of the rotor and the rotor nut. This is an old school anti-reverse. That means that on the base of your rotor here, we're going to have saw teeth right here. And those saw teeth, well, when this is out, like it is here, when it's out, that's going to intersect with the saw teeth, and that's going to enable the reel to stop. This also has an anti-reverse override to keep that in so that you can backpedal the reel should you want. That's important to some folks. All right, let's just keep the cleaning going on. There's some of that grease or WD-40s on my towel, so we're just going to use that to mop up. Interesting one. This is an eccentric driven one. I get a question on that every now and then. So we're going to pull this off. You'll notice that a little piece just came out. That's the ferrule that keeps your axle shaft off of the pinion gear. Put those two pieces in my parts tray. And we can open up the case now. I'm just checking the front side of it. Ironically, it looks like there should be a screw here, but there's not. Okay, well, maybe there's a peg. So it's an inexpensive reel. It doesn't have an instant anti-reverse on it, but that doesn't make it a bad reel. And my guess is we're going to see a single bearing. I think I'm looking at it right here. But we're going to see a single bearing here and not much more. I think we'll see two bushings on the side. And for the fans of the Shakespeare Alpha series, or the Shakespeare Tiger, a lot of those reels only have the single bearing up top and bushings below. There's nothing wrong with that. So who buys a $60 rod and reel combination? I call it the occasional angler. It can be used on a day-to-day basis, of course, but most people that are fishing regularly, let's say 50 times a year, let's say once a week, they've kind of grown up fishing. They've sorted through the various rod and reel manufacturers, the types of rods and reels. They've settled on bait casting or spinning reel or conventional reel. They've settled on where they're likely to fish, surf, boat, pier, lake, stream, what have you, the various venues. And once they do that, then they typically want to upgrade their equipment over time. And they'll buy something that can be worry-free for frequent trips. This reel and rod, that's going to be worry-free. It's not going to be one that you're going to demand everything of. And I sometimes call them cabin rods and reels, right? You leave them in the cabin or the cottage or your fishing bungalow or wherever it may be, your shore or beach house. And well, when somebody comes over and wants to fish, they grab the rod and reel and they go. 4 screws, they're all the same. Check that. Make sure that it always is that way when you do that. Notice when you take that little bump guard off that there is a hook there. Might be hard to see, but there's a little hook that fits in this slot here. Don't force it. When you break it off, it's not going to sit properly. And now we should be able to get this off. Might need a little assist to open up the case. I'm going to use a razor knife here just as a wedge. I'm going to use it where it's out of play. It's not going to affect the side plate. And yeah, that's what we have. We have bushings. We have plastic bushings. And on another video I showed that you can actually replace the bushings with bearings as long as you can find a bearing that has the same dimensions, the inside diameter, the outside diameter, and the height of the bearing. Didn't expect to see anything special in here other than bushings. That's fine. All right, we're going to bring down the crosswind block, and this is a standard setup for a spin fishing reel of the day. It's not a crazy design. It's something that's tried and true. I don't know who makes this reel, but the components are what I would call pot metal, which is a lesser metal. Again, when you're looking at cost, bushings cost less than bearings. pot metal costs less than alloy gears, but again, they will last if you properly maintain them. This one needs greases and oils. All of the grease has accumulated inside the gear, and the gear teeth themselves are unlubricated. Pull that out, pull our crosswind block out, and our crosswind or oscillation gear, it's got a screw holding it in. Nice design there. Not everybody does that. Some of them just simply put them over a stud. They tend to wobble. And then we got one more thing to do up top here. So I'm leaving these on the bench here rather than putting them into my parts tray. But a good practice, well, let's do that. Good practice would be to put them in your parts tray. Again, you don't want to lose these pieces because you're going to have a hard time finding a replacement, and oftentimes it simply means that you're done with that reel. This is the original grease, I can tell that. And there's not a lot of dirt on it. So again, what we were saying about minimized use, this really didn't have a lot of use. This reel uses 2 screws to hold down the bearing and the pinion gear assembly. It just has a wide top to that screw. There is no collar on there. And when you pull the screw out, you should be able to pull the bearing out, and then clean up an aisle 7, if you will. There's some old greases around here we can see. And there's some greases below that have leaked out from the time that it was manufactured till the time we picked it up at the yard sale. All right, just one more of these and we'll pretty much be clean on that, and then we'll show you the reassembly. We'll test it, and all we need to do is get this over to the fishing club in New York and make somebody very, very happy. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, if you want to leave those questions in the comments section, I will try to answer those for you. And it doesn't have to be on this reel, it can be on any reel. And generally I'll answer the questions in the morning. So if it's the evening where you are, this isn't a 24/7 helpline. I do my best to try and help you along, but there's no commitment that I can do that on a timely basis. And sometimes, well, on rare occasions, I can't even answer the questions. So please be patient and understand that. All right. So we've just re-greased. Test the bearing. Test the bearing by holding the inner race and turning. This one turns fine. I'm going to put the bearing back on. This one's an open bearing, doesn't have any shield to it, so there was some grease in there. I'm going to leave that grease in there and just put a fresh coat of grease on top of it. Let's take that, put that back in. Make sure that it seats properly, push down, and make sure that your bearing is flush. And we can take the 2 screws that I probably should have put in that parts tray there, because, well, that's an easy place for these things to knock about and get lost. You can see how I'm shielding it with that paper towel, and sometimes you pull that paper towel away and that thing goes off to the races somewhere. All right, these 2 are holding your clamp down. Put that back on. Now we can put that little collar on. Now there's a winged or an oval clip here that's going to go on the stud on that anti-reverse dog. Just like that. When you're spinning the reel, it's going to be fine. The eccentric will push that out. Oh, we got the override on. The eccentric will push that out when you go to reverse. That's going to catch on the sawtooth inside the reel. Okay, done with that. There's a bushing on the back here. I'm going to clean up our main gear, re-grease that. So not a bad reel. Is it worth 60 bucks? It is worth 60 bucks with the spinning rod. It's worth $60. And again, if you think that it's going to be used, I don't know, put a number on it, less than 20 times over the course of season, you got yourself a good deal there. Oh, that's the main gear. We got to reverse the order, right? We got to go put the last will be first kind of thing. So the next piece in is going to be your oscillation gear. Bring that over the stud. I like to bring the stud of the oscillation gear down to the base. And we need the screw that's holding that in. That's the broad screw. Again, if you segregate your pieces and parts in the parts tray, I use each corner for a different assembly. If you segregate them that way, kind of easy to find them and not mix and match, and that's important when you have a whole bunch of different screws. Find the flat side of your axle shaft, bring that in. Your crosswind gear gets a little bit of fresh grease onto the side here. If you're wondering what the orientation is on that crosswind gear, go to the pictures you took. Now this one does not need the main gear in first, I don't think. Guess we can find out, right? What it is, if it goes in. Yeah, it goes in. Alright, and then we have the little axle shaft screw, also a flathead. That goes in next. Point of note, if I didn't mention it earlier, there are a couple of shim washers on this main gear right here. You want to make sure that they stay on that main gear as you go for reassembly. We did mention this little ferrule that's going to go over the top of your axle shaft. It's going to seat inside your pinion gear. And we can put the base case back on. Now we have a bushing. Bushings are plastic, they're self-lubricating. You can put a little dab of grease onto the shaft there. The more I'm looking at this, the more I'm thinking, oops, bushing came out. That was wonderful. Do it this way too. The more I'm thinking that the screw does belong up there. I think they probably missed that at the plant, because I can't imagine if the person who sold me this reel had this reel apart. I'll just say they missed that one in assembly. I guess if you had the original boxing and you found out it was inspected by number 12, I guess number 12 maybe didn't do a good inspection. Alright. When I put these back in, I like to put them in an alternating sequence, in other words an X pattern rather than going in a circle. It just helps to make sure that the case seals nice and tight from all sides. I can't tell if these screws are steel or if they are stainless. My guess is they are steel. This does have a magnetic tip on it. I'm not feeling anything magnetic holding that screw on. If it was steel, it would easily hold it. These are dropping off, so let's give that a point there and say that it's a stainless steel screw. That's all good, because a steel screw will rust in a saltwater environment. Well, it'll rust in a freshwater environment too. Alright, the 4 screws are on. Remember what we said, there's a little kind of hook here that goes in this slot. Make sure that that goes in before you bring that case on. Don't want to snap it. Here's our tie down screw on the base. Oh, wrong screw. Just like that, wrong screw. That's the tie down screw for the rotor. I thought that the one that I had taken off was round. And I tell you to take pictures. I'm taking pictures. Obviously, I'm doing a video. So if I really had a question about that screw, I could stop, go look at my video, and that'll tell me which one it was. All right. So I've completed the base of the reel, cleaned it up nicely. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of things. You want to oil the seams where the bail arms meet. Same thing with the line roller. Make sure that this is in the off position. And bring this up and over now. And just rotate it until you find a square spot. There we go. I don't know why I was having so much trouble with that. Well, guess it's a nice tight fit. All right. Next on, then remember what we said. This is a reverse thread, so to tighten it, you're going to go counterclockwise. Tighten it by hand, that way you don't risk stripping it. Love this feature. It's got a cap nut on it, so you can't over tighten it. And you put that nut on, and next thing to do is grab that screw that we were trying to put into the base. That's the lockdown screw for your rotor nut. Guess we should use the other hole. That one's going to be tight there. Tighten that down. That'll prevent it from slipping. If that rotor nut slips, you get that rock in the rotor itself. All right. Click ratchet for your beta arm. Shim washer for your spool height adjuster. Bring all of that on. Bring that beautifully nice and clean rotor on. And I guess I should take this off because I'm transferring dirt and grease now, and it's getting all that nice clean piece dirty again. Well, not the same kind of dirt, but it's transferring oils over. All right, we only got one more thing to do here. Let's put the handle on, give it a test. And let's tighten this up. There we go. Okay, tighten it up, test it, and then back it off. Why do we want to back that off? We want to back that off because we put oil into those washers, and if you leave it tight, it's acting like a vise or a clamp. That's just going to press all that oil out of there. So if you take it off, you'll relieve the pressure on it, and you'll extend the life of those drag washers. Handle goes on. Nice thing about this reel is that handle can be mounted from either side, so if you're a righty or a lefty, whoever gets this, and whoever would prefer to do this one way or another, well, they're going to have their choice. Of course, we've got this annoying line is gathering again. That little V-clip is not very useful. What is useful is a rubber band. So we'll grab a rubber band here. I'm going to put that on to hold that line from kind of doing what it's doing, which is kind of riding with the reel, slipping under it. Okay. Handle is in. Handle screw goes on. And while I do this, I want to take a moment to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, and rescue. Everybody who's been involved in keeping us out of harm's way. I appreciate your dedication to task, what you do day in and day out, and your commitment to public safety. All right, there we go. So you saw evidence there that it wasn't threading properly. You stop, you reset, do it again. Don't force anything. All right. So this is Fishin Nations. It's the FN550. It's a smooth bearing system. That's bearing, not plural. And we showed you about the bearings, the bushings, how the reel is made. It's a nice reel. It's going to keep somebody fishing for a long time. Let's see how it does. You know what? That's a very smooth reel. No noise. Not complicated. Nothing fancy, but nothing detrimental either. All right. Let's throw this open. Make sure that we have a tripped bail. We do. Trips nice and easy. Can't wait to see smiles. All right. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like the video. If you're still with me again and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. That helps me and it'll help you. And, well, want to wish everybody a great day before we leave. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Wishing everybody, well, that great day. Take care.